Do you think there's any reason to remain with the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, for those of you who are unaware?
Yeah, I want to be as kind and generous as I possibly can to my friends. Tom Askell is a friend of mine, and I think that these brothers have good intentions to stay in. And so for them, I'm not going to answer the question for them. The question is to me, obviously. So for me, I see no reason whatsoever for me to stay in the SBC. There was no good path forward for me. There was no good path forward for our church. There was really no good path forward for G3 Ministries in the life of the SBC. And so we felt, after an honest assessment of where the Southern Baptist Convention currently is, if you look at the purpose of the SBC, just to summarize it, it exists as a voluntary organization or collection of churches, if you will, that cooperate together for really two specific things: for missions and for Christian education. So, under one banner of missions, you're going to have both international missions, so the IMB, the International Mission Board, and then you're going to have the North American Mission Board that's more focused on North America and church planting here. Okay, so that's missions. And so there's the training of missionaries, the sending of church planters, the funding of these church plants, and so that's one area, you might say, of focus for the SBC. The other is Christian education, and that means you have Bible colleges and you have seminaries that are used for the specific purpose, funded by the churches, the 47,000 some odd churches of the SBC, for the purpose of educating and equipping ministers of the gospel. And so, when you start looking at those two big categories, if you lose confidence in the church planting side of things or the missions side of things, to where you start looking at the churches that are being planted, there's a whole lot of pragmatism that is the foundation of a lot of the churches that are being planted. So that, if someone leaves your church and they move to another city halfway across the country, you're not sending them to join one of those church plants, if you're honest. And so for us, looking at that and then saying, okay, we would also not have those elders of those church plants in our own local church as elders. Okay, so we're giving money to a system to plant churches that we don't believe in wholeheartedly as a whole, and elders that in many cases will not be elders in our own local church for various reasons, right? And then, of course, you start looking at the Christian education piece, and we're saying, well, if someone needs to be trained at seminary, where would we send them? And although we have a few different seminaries that we would send people to from our own local church, by and large, I'm sending them to Los Angeles to the Master's Seminary. So for me, it was like, it was sort of a no-brainer. As I started watching the progressive turn of the SBC, and yes, there is a progressive leftward turn of the SBC, there has been for years. Then I started to evaluate the time investment, the financial investment, and determined that it would just not be profitable for us to continue. And this was not a solo decision, obviously. This is a decision that was made in the context of our own elders here. And then, of course, with our church as a whole. And so when we voted as a group of elders to move forward with the exit plan, then we brought it to the life of the church, and then the church voted. There was not one opposing vote from the elders or the church. And so it was just quite clear for us that this was the right decision for us. Now, are there good brothers that are staying in the SBC to fight and to try to work for reform and all this? And I say absolutely. But at the end of the day, I just think, we need to be honest. It's a pay to play system. So you have to invest money to be a part of the SBC. So how are we going to give money to a system that we believe is corrupt and that has compromised? And so we just couldn't do it anymore.
And, not to just continue putting on to the SBC, but I'm local to New York City area, and there's a Baptist leaning or Baptist. There's a seminary here that's tied to the SBC, and there was a professor there who taught for
For
over 30 years, and essentially the seminary leadership was going the woke, going down the woke path, and he just couldn't do it. And so after 30 something years, he hung it up. He donated like maybe 600 books to our church because he had nowhere to put them. He had to give up his office at the seminary. And it's just sad that, we're losing men who've dedicated their lives to teaching us the scriptures because they won't embrace a certain cultural trend, it feels like.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, we've seen people have reached out to us and, tried to figure out ways to get out of the SBC. We've had, professors reach out to us about opportunities at G3. And, it's really sad to watch what's happening. I think there's a lot of really good churches that are a part of the SBC that just have no idea what's happening. I think more and more are starting to, wake up to what's happening. But yeah, there's going to need to be a massive change. I think if Tom Askell is elected this June, it'll be the beginning of about a 20 or 25-year process to really reform the Southern Baptist Convention. So it's not going to be an instantaneous victory, if you will. It's going to be a long, long process.
Mm.
So I pray for those men, and I wish them well.